book, and I'm just going to open this here for the camera and whatnot. On this first page, I'm going to pass around, you can see it much better. So on this first page is both a burn and a laceration that I worked on for approximately 10 minutes. And then an hour later you can see that the color differentiation here and the scar tissue and the discolored skin is changing back to normal. So this is more, it's a very clear and graphic example. This is not just tissue relaxing, although relaxation tissue is a big, big deal. And I'm all for it, I want you to know. But this is actual regeneration. And likewise, this picture here, this woman had a thyroidectomy earlier in her life, and see the white fibrous part of the scar. In the second picture, it's gone. So again, I'm just going to pass this around. There's some letters here. You feel free to look at those if you'd like to. I'll just get that to you. Feel free. Okay. So basically, what Regenesis does is it stimulates the body's nascent power to regenerate. So actually, regeneration of tissue. That's what it does. There is a picture in the back, in fact, which shows a man's ear that had been cut off in his automobile, got in an accident with a train, and the top of his ear was shorn off like this. I've known some people who have had accidents where their ear has been cut off, and it usually just grows back. The cut line just remains straight like that. With the application of Regenesis, it was able to grow up round over the cut line, like that. Okay, so again, there's something going on here with regeneration.
There's a memory there.
Pardon me?
A memory.
Exactly, exactly. So people ask me quite often, regardless of whatever condition they come in with, is how long will it take to treat this? And I always say the same answer, which is it does depend upon the individual. And the process works like this in healing. We have, in the beginning, we're looking for improvement of the condition. So it's either, say, increased range of motion or a lessening of pain. That's good. We have improvement. But we also want correction. Correction would be when all the pain is gone. Or the person can fully breathe freely, completely, and their sinuses are clear if they have a sinus condition. And there's one more step, and that is resolution. Resolution is what I call it when the cellular memory completely changes to a state of optimal health. And in that state, even under some stress, it will maintain that. That's what we're looking for. So when I'm working with athletes who have sports injuries, it's right in that they've improved. It may even be corrected, but you know, most of them are elite athletes and they're hungry to get back to their sport. But I have to warn them, if you do that too soon, there's too much stress applied, you'll go back to the injured state. Then we have to start all over again. So that state of resolution is very important to attain that. And then that maintains. So switching over to the Regenesis Facelift. So I work with a lot of conditions. I've been doing Regenesis for over 40 years. For 12 years before that, I did different forms of acupressure.
I can be a witness to that.
Please, yes.
Yeah, he's worked with me because I was into construction, martial arts, and doing a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah.
He's kept me going. You know, I just hit 70
Yes.
last month.
I know.
And if it wasn't for John here, I think I'd be barely walking in here. Because what he does, it's amazing. It works.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. Yeah. Come back after a lot of things, huh?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So I found the acupressure, in fact, was very effective, but Regenesis is even more effective. So that's what I've been doing mostly for over 30 years now. And so I still do elements of acupressure and use acupoints from time to time, but most of what I'm doing is the Regenesis process. So when I'm holding on nerve plexi or just on the local area or even on a point, it doesn't work via pressure. I am running an energy, and that's what causes the effect. That's what causes the healing action to take place. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you get the idea? Yeah. Okay. So I work with a lot of things, and over time, there are a couple of people that had some of my wrestlers. Some of them had their nose broken, really probably numerous times. It can be a very collisional sport. And they don't wear helmets. They'll wear ear gear so they don't get cauliflower ears, which sometimes works. Sometimes it doesn't. But their face is exposed usually. And so a lot of them have the bridge of their nose quite often takes a beating. And so one young man, he says, well, I'm having trouble breathing. Can you help me with that? And I said, sure. I work with sinus conditions a lot. And he says, yeah, I think my nose might even be broken. And he didn't know this, but at this time I'd already worked with a number of people doing what we now call the Regenesis facelift procedure. But I worked with his nose actually straightened out, and he could breathe easier. And I said, do me a favor, just take a look at yourself in the mirror when you go in the bathroom there. And so he did, and he came back out. He says, my nose is straight, my nose is straight. And then he went home, and his father calls me, my son's nose is straight, my son's nose is straight. Oh, it's good to have validation, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes it is.
So anyway, for some time I knew I'd been on to something. So I've been doing this as the Regenesis facelift for a while, but I've really been publicizing it more this last year. And so I have some pictures, and you saw the one that's on the flyer there, the before and after, which I thought was a pretty good example of work considering that person is 81 years old. And that was after 2 sessions, you can see that. So what I said earlier applies to the Regenesis facelift as well. So usually I like people to do like a short series, 4 or 5 sessions, something like that. And that way they'll have more and more of the cellular memory of the optimal shape of their face, shall we say. So I do find it helps to fill and lift, and in a very organic way. I've had people come to me who have had numerous plastic surgeries who have told me that the Regenesis does work on their face and removes lines that they have that no matter what the procedure is that they had before, just didn't touch. So I know we're onto something pretty powerful here. But again, it's the same principle as all the other work that Regenesis does. So why wouldn't that be true of helping the skin to regenerate, rejuvenate perhaps? Okay. So that's basically what it does. Did anybody have any questions from what I've been talking about up here?
I have something I'd like to add.
Please.
Working with auras,
Yeah.
in Curly and photography, they have a picture where, and I have pictures of people who have lost the part of a finger.
Yes.
And with Curly and photography, you can still see the energy.
Yes.
The body still knows that there was a finger there.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed that to somebody who had lost her pinky. And she looked at it, she started to cry, and she said, my body didn't forget.
Yeah.
And I think that's
right.
exactly what you're saying, your
That's
body
right.
doesn't forget.
Exactly. So I've worked with people who have had lost limbs or digits, and also who have had different organs maybe removed. And what we believe in Regenesis is that's okay. We can work on the etheric organ, and it's still going to have an effect. And sometimes the organ itself does regenerate.
Right.
I do know that that's true with regards to people who've had part of their liver removed, and with Regenesis it's regenerated. There are also a very graphic story, but one, because people ask about limb regeneration. I haven't done any limb or digits regenerated completely. However, I have worked with people who've had nerve damage and their arm was completely unable to move, and they regained function in their arm.
Wow.
So that I have done. But there was a man, it was an appendage, and so I hope nobody, nobody's offended by what I'm saying. But this is the clearest example. So I talked to him and his wife, and he had had a bladder infection, and they had put a catheter in, and it wasn't taken care of properly in the hospital, and he had an infection. A long story short, they ended up excising about a little over 1/3 of his penis, okay? And so his wife said, well, is there anything you can do? And I say what I always say, because that was completely new to me at that time. And I said, I'll do the best I can. And so I did my work, I did a lot of points in the area. I very gently, and of course with his permission, you know, step by step, I did put my hands on the site there. And worked on him a couple of times in that manner. And this is, by the way, this is through clothing and through underwear in this case. And his penis did regenerate
Awesome.
back to perfect.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so they were both actually very concerned about that. And she was really concerned
Yeah.
about, well, not only what it might mean sexually for them, but also psychologically what it might mean to her husband. And she said, you know,
That's a good
I
wife.
remember her, yeah, she was saying, well, gosh, it's, you know, it's, for a man, it's losing his manhood, you know, and so, you know, they really were very grateful
Yeah.
that was able to happen, so.
It can be
so-
devastating.
Pardon
Well,
me?
It
it's a
can be
sin-
devastating, yes.
Yeah.
What about something that's been surgical removed, like in a mastectomy? Have you worked with anything like that?
No, I haven't.
That would
I
be
haven't.
interesting.
I have worked with cancer, and I have worked with women who've had breast cancer. And in one case, they were also doing chemo at the same time. And in another case, they were not. And both of these women I'm thinking of, their cancer went into remission.
Good.
And then within the last year, there's a couple of people I've worked with. One person had cancer in 3 different parts of her body.
Right.
And, yeah, Nick, no, you know too. And now a year later, all the scans show that she's completely cancer-free. And in her case, she had no radiation or chemo, and surgery wasn't an option anyway. Her diet's really good. But besides her diet and Regenesis, there was no other intervention. And so that's happened a number of times over the years, and that's probably one of the most profound, since she had cancer in 3 parts of her body, and the prognosis just was not good. But now, a year later,
I'd like to say, 2 years ago, my prostate cancer came back after 8 years, and it was stage 4.
Oh my gosh.
And doing the protocol that Kaiser had me on, and seeing John and doing nutritional stuff, I no longer have it in my lymph nodes. That's why it was stage 4, was in my lymph nodes, totally clear.
Wonderful.
And,
Yes, indeed.
it's a combination of stuff. You know, I wouldn't just recommend going with a protocol of what the doctors say. It's working with John, finding other ways to do that. And off the medication now. and
Good for you.
Feel a lot
Yeah.
better.
Good.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that is
thanks.
fantastic. And
Yeah.
don't you think a lot of it has to, that you really trust John?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
trust John. Mhm.
John, I think that's one of the things you do, you and people, is this trust that you're there for their best and highest good,
I wouldn't come
Yeah.
to him,
right?
but I didn't trust him.
yeah. Thank you, and I would agree. And that's really important. My intention to be there and to be of service to them. On that note, what I would add, and the founder of Regenesis always said this to me, is that what we're doing is like, some of you know that I sometimes act. I'm an actor, part-time. And so I'm a very good supporting player. I'm proud of being a supporting player, okay? I'm an Oscar-worthy supporting player. Because this is not false modesty, but the star is really the person's system, okay? Because that's what's coming forth to do the real healing. And I would say, I dare say, that most of the time, certainly that's the case in any sort of healing, allopathic or other, you can be the most brilliant surgeon in the world, but the person's body still has to do the healing, you know, or whatever the condition is.
You always have to participate in it.
I'm sorry?
You have to participate in your own healing.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And so when people come to participate here, it's a vital but also very simple participation, which is just to really lie down and receive. I really encourage people just to relax, not to work on it themselves at that time while I'm working on them. And most people, they go into the ideal healing state, which is, for some people, they actually do go sleep. And a lot of people, they're between sleep and wakefulness, and they'll be in that twilight zone. And that's a place where they really take in a lot of the healing, and their body responds very strongly. So that's sort of the ideal state. So no matter what I'm doing with people, I encourage them to be in that state. Yeah.
Very good.
Good. Yes. Okay, so, and I welcome any other questions that you might have about anything.
Do you teach?
What?
Do you teach
Do I teach?
Regenesis?
I do teach Regenesis. I have taught Regenesis quite a bit in the 90s. I taught. And I haven't taught all that much. I've taught smaller groups. There's a couple of people who've been with me for 8, 9 years now, and they've gone through all of the training with me, and they still keep in touch with me, and I still work with them. And so, which is, by the way, that's one of the best models, I think. I sort of like doing it smaller and more locally than I was before. A lot of people took the training, especially like the first level of the training, and then it just sort of dissipates. Smaller groups tend to be, it's a little more cohesive. They tend to take it on more and stay with it more. And so both the students that I'm thinking of, they run really good energy. I'm very proud of them, they're doing well. And again, the time will come when I'll be teaching it again. It's not easy, by the way. It's very intense.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, because I'm teaching them how to bring up the energy and do all this process, as well as a lot of technical things about where the positions are throughout the body for different conditions and working with different aspects of the body being.
Do you visualize the healing as it's going on?
Pardon me?
Do you visualize the healing? Where are you when you're doing it? Because most of the time I'm asleep when you're
Yeah.
yeah. Start working on me.
Yeah, we've been joking for years. Nick, he accused me of this. Now I say it to people all the time. If they've been asleep, I say, well, I went out for coffee. For
No, that too, yeah, come back.
So, I'm in the process. And so, again, I used to do things with, traditional Chinese medicine, the acupressure and such, and 5-element theory and whatnot. And I took pulses for a long time. I don't tend to do that anymore because I feel my hands just go where they need to go. So I'm in the flow of the process of healing. And I'm more interested, I mean, I do assess and I do talk to people. That's probably my biggest assessment or diagnostic tool, is listening and talking to people. And also paying attention to where my own intuition leads me. But I don't, all my eggs are not in the basket of diagnosis. Maybe one or two. But most of my eggs are in the basket of healing. So that's the action. I want to get into that action as soon as possible to help ultimately resolve whatever it is they came to me for. So my state of mind, there is a visualization and there is a targeting that I am doing. And I think that might be what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, if you don't mind me talking about this, the gallstones, okay. When Nick had gallstones, okay. We know each other, he's been coming to me for a long time. We've worked on a lot of things, okay. So in that case, it's like, okay, so I physically know where the gallbladder is, but I was going, okay, Nick's gallbladder and gallstones dissolving and and whatever other optimal healing needs to happen, so sort of like that, and sort of visualizing that just being pink and healthy or whatever the color of the gallbladder is, whatever is that's what its optimal state is, what my intention is. Okay, so I'd say that would be my answer to your question.
You just stoned me.
Yeah.
I'm not a stoner anymore.
Right. Yes. No. It's
No,
gallstones
my whole
disappeared.
family, father, mother, brothers, sisters, all had gallstone problems, real bad. So when I started getting it, I had the same issues and problems that they had. And just before I went in, about a week before I went to get a ultrasound, or less than a week, I came and saw John. He worked up like an hour and a half or something on me.
Yeah.
Went in there, gallstones.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Fantastic.
I go like, where'd they go?
Not that I want them back, but
Yeah, it's really. We're not calling them back. We're not
right.
doing
Don't
that.
want 'em
No.
back, no, but yeah, it was.
Yep, I do remember. And the thing is, like in Nick's case, and this is what I, just in terms of public education, is that sometimes it can happen in one session. And sometimes the same thing would happen in maybe 3 or 4 sessions, which still is dramatically quick, you have to understand. You know, that's still lightning fast. There was a woman that I worked with, and her letter's not in the binder there, but it is on my site. And she had come to me with a breast tumor that had been very carefully palpitated and measured by her MD, who then sent her for an ultrasound. And in between, she came to see me. And so during the session, it disappeared. And I couldn't find it, she couldn't find it, so I really don't find it, it's not there. Okay, there's no trace of it, so I can't find it either. She had the ultrasound, and it revealed that there was nothing there. And now she also had the wit to ask her MD to write down the arc of the events. He did not say that Regenesis did this, of course, but what he did say is, I found this mass, is about 1 cubic centimeter mass, off, between the second and first rib. He described it to a T. And then he said, I sent the patient for an ultrasound. The ultrasound revealed nothing. So he did say it was there, and then it's not there. So that's fine, that's good, that's all I need.
You know what happened.
I know that, yeah. Yeah, and she knew what happened, she was very happy about it and everything, so, yeah. And again, that might take longer with somebody else, and sometimes it is instantaneous, that's also true. So, yes?
Can you work long distance?
Pardon me?
Can you work distance?
We do have a long distance technology, yeah. Yeah, so we do that, yeah. And sometimes it's quite traumatic. To be honest with you, I would tack towards the in-person work. I think that's still a bit stronger. On average, there are exceptions, but the long distance work has been helpful to people for sure. Yeah, in fact, one time, my teacher, what was going on with him? Robert Rasmussen is the founder of Regenesis. He had adult onset diabetes, which really impacted him in the last part of his life. And he had taken a bad turn, and his wife called me and said, can you do some long distance for him? And I said, sure. And I said, I'll call everybody I can to do it. So I called a number of my students at the time, and all of us worked on him together. And he made an amazing turnaround in one evening, yeah, just to give one example of that, yeah.
From him being where, in Santa Cruz?
He was in Santa Cruz.
And you guys all,
We were mostly here in the valley, here in Santa Clara Valley, yeah, yeah. So, but technically, he wrote a little paper about this, that it doesn't really matter what if you're doing the long distance, if it was in Santa Cruz or if it was in Tahiti or wherever one might be, if you're doing long distance, yeah. So it's not like it gets weaker as you get geographically further away. There is a phenomena that the math tells us this is true, by the way, scientifically they say this is true, is that something can happen in an electron here, and on the other side of the universe it can respond. So some of you know that theory, I'm sure, better than I
Yeah,
do.
they've taken heart cells from San Francisco to New York,
Yes,
and they'll beat at the same
Yes.
time as each
yes.
other, yeah.
So there's something there's a field that transcends time-space, yeah, yeah, so,
Well, they've done quite a bit of study with plants
yes, okay, yeah. Cross
and
distance.
tissue and
Yes.
all kinds of
Mm-hmm,
things. It just seems so
yeah.
abstract, but it isn't. It's all connected.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I warn you, you can get me started on this, and I can go on and on.
Okay, well, yeah, we all, yeah.
Yes, we all can.
Because
yes.
it's so amazing.
Yeah,
Like a friend of mine said, I said, it's just so amazing when it happens. We should be amazed when it doesn't happen, because of course it's going to happen, because that's physics, that's the law,
yeah.
it's going to happen.
Well, another little story that we were talking about limb regeneration earlier, and Bob Rasmussen told me the story, because I was asking earlier in my training, I was asking about limb regeneration. And he told me the story of a boy in Canada who had lost his hand, and his hand had regenerated completely. And one of the things that he said is that in the community that he was in, it was fertile soil of belief and support for that happening.
Mhm.
And he said that was a major reason that that was able to happen. And I don't know, he may have had other interventions as well, but that was a big part of it. So it's the same kind of thing we're talking about right now. Yeah.
No energetic blocks.
Pardon me?
No energetic blocks.
No energetic blocks, yeah, yeah.
From negative thought patterns.
yeah. It's a real thing.
It is.
It's a real thing. People ask this question too. They ask, do you have to believe in it? And my off the top basic answer is, no, you don't have to believe in it. You can be, and then a quick caveat, you can be as skeptical as you want, but not cynical. Okay?
Absolutely.
If somebody has an agenda against this working, it will not work for them, for sure. Okay, if they're there to prove their spouse wrong or something like that. But I have had some people who are just, they're begrudgingly there, but they are there. Okay, and they put themselves on the table. Oh, I don't know, you know. And
They're afraid it might not work, and that's their fear.
yeah, and yet still work with them.
Right.
So they weren't quite cynical. They were afraid. Of course, cynicism often hides fear. We know that. You know? But if somebody actively has energy about, I cannot afford for this to work, or it just goes too much against my sense of reality or something, that's I think what we're talking about. Yeah. So I do want to steer towards the Regenesis facelift since that's what brought you all here. And as a segue, as my probably way too obvious segue, one of the things that I commonly work with, no matter what I do, and I certainly do it in the facelift, is I work with the glandular system. Now, through my experience of all the things I've studied, all the healing work that I've done, is I really feel that our glandular system, they produce more than hormones. They produce other substances we've yet to discover, probably will discover at some point. Right now we know that the adrenals produce over 30 different hormones. Wow, that's just one glandular system. I feel that the glandular system is the intermediary between our energy body and our physical body. And there's a cascade that happens when you work with all the glands that in turn affects all the organs to some degree at least. So that's always good, and that affects the whole body. It ripples out that way. So I always do that to some degree, even if I'm working with somebody who has a backache or something. Eventually I will do that. Yeah. Okay. So, without further ado, I would like to do some demonstrations of the Regenesis facelift. Okay, so everybody has a ticket, right? Okay, so you have no ticket? You have no ticket?
No, but I didn't.
Well, would you
She's
like a
doing
ticket?
the photography.
Okay.
And I'm just here.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, your presence is always so wonderful. Thank you.
Well,
very
one
much.
of the things I was going to say is I think some people, John, because like myself, I go in there and I lay down and I have the best sleep I've had in weeks. And I know you're not doing sleep therapy, I know you're doing healing.
Right.
But still, it's the most amazing thing. I get off the table feeling regenerated.
Yes.
More
Yes.
rejuvenated and all of that through the sleep that I get. It's
Yes.
incredible.
Yes, and I can hardly wait to get you on the table.
Oh, you say that to all the women.
Well, you know, I always refer to this as a table. I always, you know, I never refer to it as a bed. Just so, some of my clients do.
Yeah,
Yeah, they refer to this, but yes.
No, it's not a bed, it's a.
It must be
it's a-
really comfortable.
it is, it is.
Yes, we try to make it as comfortable as possible. And I mean, there are a number of things. I have blankets and things, and I have these bags of rice that I heat up in the microwave. You all know, and I'll put that at people's feet, and that helps them to relax. And so a lot of people really like that a lot.
Yeah.
So
And
yes.
you got your lights. Your lights.
Oh,
Multicolored lights.
the multicolored lights. Yes, one of my students, some of you know Rob, he brought me in a light bulb and this little push button control. And he put it into my lamp that's there, and that's all it was. And you push the button and the light bulb changes colors. remotely.
The whole room, yeah.
And the whole room just illumines with, so then I have people, pick the color of light they like. A lot of people it doesn't matter, but some people say, I really like that blue, or, green, I wanna have green today. Few people choose red. It's a real different, when you're in the room too, you feel like the energy of light too. It does, can set a tone for sure. Yeah. So I have everybody's card here, everybody's ticket here, I believe. So you should have a corresponding ticket. So if it's okay with everybody, I'm just gonna mix them up this way, all
Sure.
right? I know it's not like a fishbowl, but,
Your hat.
Okay, or a hat, yes, okay. So I'm picking one out, okay, so this is my first person, okay? So 606816.
Oh, that's me.
That's
Yay,
you.
a winner!
Okay, so what I'd like you to do, and I have a little step-up stool. Oh, yes, thank you very much, yes, I will check.
Make sure she's not cheating.
Okay, I'll put these here, this is yours here, and I have a little step-up stool if you like here.
Should I take my shoes off? It doesn't matter.
For right now, I don't think it matters.
Okay.
And head over here, laying on your back, of course.
Okay.
Okay. And may I take your glasses, or
Yeah.
set them on your chair, or what would be good?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Stick it right here. Okay, so I'm just going to get myself a chair.
You want the lights down, or are you fine?
That would be better.
Down a little bit. How are you doing?
Thank you, Tamara.
Yeah.
Now, is there anybody that objects to me videotaping them during the process?
Only if you get my good side.
Oh, which side, that's the
You
other
let
side?
me know.